Welcome everyone to 2025. This is going to be our first panel discussion 2025. One of the hot topic, but not spoken much about is the topic itself is a little bit more controversial or eye-catching topic. I would say it's ASAP is not a timeline, right? How profound is this statement in customer service? Why we thought about and came up with this topic is we use this ASAP a lot, even in our conversation and the email and everywhere, even in the chat. So why is it becoming challenging for the customer service is we are living in an era where customer service have become a lot more challenging in terms of the time given for service is very less. Everybody expecting everything real time. So when you are living in that era, and then somebody says ASAP, give me this, give me that. So are we able to keep up with that? Because number one, you're not given when a customer is expecting, and number two, what it takes to do it. Number three, are we going to be able to deliver it? And number four, is this the topmost priority, or is there anything else that are life threatening things that has to be done first before coming to this, right? So there are a lot of challenge the business are facing when they are coming up with this kind of a challenges. So that's what we are trying to discuss today. And so let's I'll explain a little bit about the topic, and then we'll jump into the discussion, and I'll introduce the panel discussion, who all are participating with us, and then we'll get this started, right? So ASAP, the as soon as possible has become a like a second nature for everybody to for to mention in the conversation, whether it is a support ticket or a complaint resolution or a simple query. Service teams are often expected to address issues ASAP. However, ASAP is ambiguous and unworkable as a timeline, as it is highly subjective and non-specific. A lot of room is left for interpretation. Sometimes ASAP is used to create urgency. So, in my opinion, when you have something left for interpretation, things can go wrong because customers are expecting something, they're interpreting something, and then if it is not clear for them, obviously they are going to be disappointed, right? Because they were expecting that, it did not happen. So do we want to leave that? Even though we are doing a good job as a company to, let's say, come up with resolving a ticket, it takes 3 hours, and that is the best you can do, and you have done it, right? But then customer is expecting within half hour, right? And that's what he meant by ASAP. And it's not coming out clearly, and we have not communicated that back to them clearly. Hey, it is not a half hour, it's going to be 3 hours, setting the expectation right, and when it is going to be delivered. So things can get go in a wrong direction for no good reason, right? So that's why we are even debating, is it time to retire ASAP in favor of clear actionable timelines. In this panel discussion, we want to explore how ASAP shapes customer service today. So to do that, we have 3 panelists today. So let me start introducing one by one. Jaideep Ghosh. Jaideep currently functions as a managing director of operations at Continuum Global Solutions, where he manages delivery of 5 businesses out of Philippines and India. He has more than 25 years of experience working with organizations like Dell, eClerx, Teleperformance, and Conduent prior to Continuum. His expertise includes customer service, delivery, process, and transaction quality and standardization, client engagement, customer lifecycle, training, and development. We are happy to have you as a part of this panel discussion, and we are looking forward to hearing your views, Jaideep. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. Second is Dayant Varun. Varun currently functions as a chief of marketing at Relevantus. He believes in the power of generative AI to transform the customer experience. He specializes in providing personalized interactions and targeted campaigns at scale. In his 2-decade-long career, he has had stints with various IT organizations, including FutureNet, Aspire Systems, Cognizant, and Sifty Solutions before joining Relevantus. He comes from world of B2B, and we look forward to hearing your views on this discussion. Welcome, Varun.
Thank you so much, Utsaman. Glad to have you and the
Yeah.
team. Yeah.
Yeah. So the third panelist is Shilpi Mishra. Shilpi has more than 2 decades of experience in the customer experience space, working with organizations like Converges, SBI Life, Ambex, BMW, and Echo General Insurance. Currently, Shilpi heads customer success at Freed, which is India's #1 debt relief platform. She firmly believes that customer experience is the biggest differentiator in today's commoditized market offerings, and she tirelessly works towards creating end-to-end experience for all stakeholders. We look forward to hearing your views on this panel discussion, Shilpi. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much, and I'm actually looking forward to the entire discussion with all of you guys.
Sure. So let me reiterate the topic one more time. ASAP is not a timeline. How profound is this statement in customer service? Okay, so let's dive into this, right? So discussion points, so we come up with a few discussion points just to trigger your point of view on everything. So first one is going to be for all three of you. So so let's hear from you. So number one, ASAP has long been synonymous with urgency in customer service, often driving quick responses to customer queries or complaints. While this focus on speed can delight customers in specific scenarios, it may not always be an optimal approach. What does ASAP mean to you in the context of customer service? Are there particular scenarios where ASAP is not the best approach? Whoever wants to go first, yeah, feel free.
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I think in the current context, in the present world of customer care, and what Shilpi rightly said, that it's a highly evolved customer market right now, ASAP holds no good. To be very honest, it's a very vague term. It's a term which reeks of lack of accountability, and I'll elaborate on that one.
Yeah.
And often leads to customer kind of disengagement and dissatisfaction, for the simple reason that, yeah, I mean, to your point rightly, that sometimes it kind of brings in a sense of urgency, brings in a sense of alertness. But if you see, it doesn't mean anything. It's open to interpretation, right? And customers in today's world, with the way they are maturing, with the options they have, and the point that we were talking a while ago, it's a very evolved, educated, spoilt of choices. Now, when you say that, customer looks through your genuinity, right? I mean, or the honesty towards what you're trying to do. So quite often it might I mean, solve the tier one of your issue, but if you're trying to build a company, if you're trying to build a brand or a service standard for yourself, it has to be kind of followed with a very specific, I would call it the smart approach in this one. And I'll come to that four nuances of the tenets of a issue. Like, have you figured out the quantification of the issue? What's the issue? Are you able to kind of communicate to the client, to the customer? What is the impact? What are you doing to kind of solve it? And realistically, what is the timeline that you require to solve it? It one gives that sense of confidence that the client has a realistic expectation. Secondly, more importantly, it establishes that confidence and trust in the person who's handling your transaction, because he has been able to walk you through the entire range of the issue. He's demonstrated his understanding, his grip over the issue, and at the same time, he's genuinely assessing the problem and giving you a realistic timeline, which probably will not kind of give a wow effect, but customer being an intelligent person, he understands and he kind of more often than not sticks to that. And that helps in relationship building over a long period of time. To me, so to summarize, I think ASAP is a absolute no-go if you want to build a world-class customer service environment in any
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Yeah.
So building on the
Okay.
same thing what Jerry said, and Varun, excuse me if I've taken up your stance here. But building on what Jerry mentioned and what you have actually mentioned, I think the problem is with the expectations.
Yeah.
With the social media presence, with the chat option available, the expectation of a response is high. But as long as you're able to deliver the expectation right, so whatever industry you're working, you know what kind of queries or a problem or a concern would be raised by the customer at throughout their journey with you. So you are able to categorize them into different buckets. So in a certain bucket, it might be completed in 3 hours, it might be completed in 4 hours. So the first response immediately to a customer should mention that we are working on this issue, we'll get back to you with a resolution with 3 hours, for example.
Yeah.
Anything below 3 hours is only going to delight the customer, because of course the expectation has been set right and you've been able to deliver prior to that. But if it goes beyond 3 hours, that's when the problem starts coming in, because the expectation was quite different.
So essentially, Shilpi, what you're saying is 3 hours assessing the problem realistically and giving a realistic time frame which it requires.
Correct. The first response should definitely focus on getting the expectation right with the customer as well.
Right.
But of course, that 3 hours should be well matched with what customer is expecting. So, for example, if it's a simple query, and then you are actually saying that one of our customer executive would reply you back in 3 hours, when this could have been immediately replied back over a chat, the WhatsApp business chat that we use, or the business use, or over a social media presence. If someone has raised a query over the social media, 3 hours would not work. So matching that expectation with what the categorization of the query and the concern is raised is quite important. Once you have been able to do that, the expectation has been able to match, then of course it works. There are certain times when ASAP or let's say even the fixed timelines are not going to work, but you still have to give realistic expectations. One of them would be the escalation cases. The moment an issue is escalated, all of you might be aware that if a case is escalated, you actually go through the entire history of all the communication that has happened with the customer to understand the entire history of the issue and to take actions accordingly. Now, that entire history walk-up generally takes a much more time than it usually takes up for a normal issue. So it's very difficult to analyze a timeline to it, but you still give a realistic expectation that give us 24 hours of time, give us 48 hours of time, let us go through entire history, let us get back to you. Then you can specifically go ahead and give the timeline. But of course, ASAP should definitely be out of the entire dictionary itself when it comes to customer service, because ASAP does not align with any of the expectations, either from the business side or from the customer service expectation side.
Yeah. True. So basically being more proactive and
Correct.
communicate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Shilpi, no problem. That was a good summary, I would rather say. Normally in the customer service side of things, we look at two perspectives, right? One is on the B2C side of things, where you directly interact with the end customers. And for my case, it's more of a B2B in nature, where we interact with enterprises with over 1 billion and above and so on. And we are kind of helping their development requirements as well as the infrastructure related requirements. Now, what we are trying to get hold of is that the kind of immediate priorities, categorize it as levels, level 1, 2, 3, and then if it is a very low priority, then you can automate it and do it. Level 2 is something pretty critical, which has its own escalation metrics or SLA bound in nature. Level 3 is obviously the dedicated line in which we need to operate. But ASAP, when there is no definition of service level agreements, or there is no definition of escalation metrics, or when there is no hierarchical or step-by-step approach towards that, then ASAP is definitely not good, because when the moment it is ASAP, then it is obviously ASAP 1, ASAP 2, ASAP 3, right? Everybody will say ASAP, right?
Yes.
Then we are dealing with which one is ASAP, right? Everybody says it's priority number 1. It is not a priority at all, or it is a priority where we are putting all the tools down and focus on that priority, and then put all the tools down and focus on another priority, right? So that is where it is getting muddied, right? That is where it is getting diluted in terms of priority. So rather approaching that way, ASAP will definitely not a choice or solution to the customer success. But obviously, where we are living into the managerial side of things, normally the customers obviously are end customers, or sometimes it will be internal customers where we have to deal with ASAP, right? Hey, get me that presentation ASAP, or get me that out ASAP. Then we have to put all these things that will affect end customers solution as well from the B2B side of things. So anywhere ASAP is a no-no, and there should be a proper escalation SLAs, and the prioritization metrics should be formed. So that is my 2 cents on that.
Varun, just quick follow-up on what you mentioned. I'm curious to know on a B2B level, because you deal with a lot of negotiations, a lot of discussions, internal discussions, after which, you might be able to quote final details to the customer. Because these discussions internally also requires a lot of approvals, a lot of process flows. What do you communicate to the customer? Do you also define the timeline? Because ASAP would not work, and a fixed timeline will also not work. But do you give an expectation of a timeline in terms of when you would get back with, your side of the story for the client, so that they can take a decision on it?
Okay, so there are levels of discussions in which it happens, right? First of all, we identify the opportunity, then size the opportunity, and then put a price towards that opportunity, right? And believe me, client is very accommodative when it comes to the pricing and understanding and proposal side of things, where he will say, okay, I am sizing the opportunity. I am getting requests or quotes from different organizations. Okay, some clients will come up with the proper RFP procedure, where they will say, okay, this is the time in which you have to submit your proposal. This is the time in which you have the negotiations in place. This is the timeline in which we will finalize the vendor. Now, if it is our existing customer and if he wants a new opportunity to be sized and quoted, then they will obviously be relaxed in terms of giving us certain timeline. But since we are entering into an unknown quote or unknown opportunity, in the sense that it might have its own ifs and buts, we obviously work backwards, which eventually put pressure or ASAP on the internal audience. Now, we can always do the level set with the customers by saying, hey, it is getting, since we are working majority on the North American clients, they'll always be accommodative and say that, okay, fine, we understand that. And sometimes if we say that, okay, we will take for a proposal, we will take like 10 days to give you or come back with the proper detailed estimation, they'll be okay with that. But when we say that, hey, we will come back to you in 5 days, then they will kind of question our capability to execute that. Okay, there is no right or wrong with respect to the timeline, but there should be a reasonable timeline for us to humanly possible and do.
Yeah.
Actually, to that point, I mean, because I come from customer service background and I also am responsible for client relationship. So I'll give you an example, real life example to exactly what was just quoted. So I mean, we are a 24/7 business in front of the customer and SLA with 99% and above kind of a thing. I mean, it's like, 24/7. So something went down at one point in time. I mean, there was a major IT issue, some cable cut and all, which led to one of our sites completely down. And we were on a bridge with the client. So, I mean, how clients go when things go wrong. And our clients are in turn responsible for multiple client of theirs. So it's an SLA impact for multiple of second level clients. It was a big disaster. Now, everybody was on the bridge, our own IT folks, me from the relationship side of it, and it was nasty is an understatement. I remember the call was for close to 10.5 hours on the bridge. Now, then I had to kind of take that same approach, which I was just talking a while ago. So I asked my TRM. TRM is the technical relationship manager who's responsible for communicating and dealing with technical stuff of it. He was initially reluctant to kind of reveal the entire story of things, that there was some fault, some cable cut and all that stuff, and it's not going to be fixed anytime soon. And the impact is real. I asked him to go back and have a very candid and a transparent conversation with the customer and with the client, including me, of course. We explained them the situation, that we are aware the good part is that we have figured out what happened. Then we also told them that the size of the problem, what is the scale and the size, and what are we doing to fix it? I mean, basically, what's my mitigation plan, that invoking by BCP, bringing up another side, bringing people from work at home, giving some OTs and so on and so forth, typical to a contact center environment kind of a thing. And lastly, with all that said, we gave them realistically, this is the time frame which is going to be required, which the client was insisting, hey, give me next 1 hour, next 2 hours. So our SLAs are in intervals, which is 30 minutes. You understand? When intervals are in 30 minutes, they go crazy if something goes down even for a few minutes. And this would have taken at least 7 or 8 hours. But when we stepwise gave that approach, what's the problem, the right sizing of the problem, what we are doing to fix it to the extent possible, and what's the realistic time to come back upon. And from my experience, I can tell you that this calmed a lot of frayed nerves. They were, of course, not content because there were a lot of damage control that needed to be done, but at least that maniacal or that kind of emotions got kind of calmed down.
Yeah.
They were now working with us, and we were able to then much more confidently go ahead and solve our problem. So again, goes back into the same statement that if we got into the same panic mode and stated something like an ASAP, or we are trying to fix it without giving a clarity of what's going on, it would have been a big disaster. Would have costed us the relationship.
Yeah. You picked up a very good point on transparency. This goes back to the expectation setting as well. I think once you are very transparent in terms of how much time it's going to take,
that's a hallmark
what are we
of customer
working.
care anyway.
Absolutely, and it not just helps in ensuring the right expectation. I think it builds loyalty with the customers for a long term as well, because you've been very clear with the customers.
Yeah.
But I would take one more step. I'm sorry. I mean, if I can
No, but yes, please go ahead.
I think this is more of a culture. I mean, see, we're all focusing on that ASAP terminology in context to our end customer. But I think it is equally important to build I'll take a step backward and a holistic approach. Me being the leader of this kind of the domain that I handle, I think it's a culture, and culture always starts from top, right? It percolates from top to bottom.
Yeah.
We have to build a culture of moving away from ASAP in our internal conversations, internal transactions. When I tell my managers or whoever is responsible for a certain thing, if you don't take ASAP for an answer, and it also kind of puts a lot of accountability, I would say, to the leadership, right? If you as a leader is taking ASAP as an answer, somewhere it reeks of lack of accountability on your part as a leader, because you're not ready for a deeper conversation. You're not ready to get into the weeds along with your leaders or managers to help them solve problems, because they also sometimes look forward to your solution. You're not ready to roll up your sleeves, get into the details. You're not able to help them to solve with a realistic timeline, or it also demonstrates your lack of understanding of the issue, and you just are interested in getting it fixed using your position and power from a 10,000 feet above, and you're not caring about the the how part of it. You're only focusing on the what part of it. So it also kind of demonstrates your capability as a leader, how you're building that how culture, which also kind of bakes into your going into the details, setting realistic expectations wherever it needed, hold their hands, help them out, find out a realistic time frame, and work with them to solve that. And once you build that culture, it definitely goes percolates down to the front line, and they will use the same methodology with their transactions, their chat, email, whatever transactions they are into.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so a lot of good conversation. Like even I have an example. Like I'll go over it later. Where we have taken a little bit more time on this one, so that's good. We come up across a lot of good points. So let's move to the second one. Jaydeep, this is for you. Do you follow a nuanced approach towards customer service, or are you in favor of ASAP? What are the barriers you see to moving away from ASAP timelines?
So that's a very good question. So the barriers that I see. So for example, I mean, I told we touched that point that ASAP is a no-go kind of thing.
Yeah.
But to your point, yes, there are barriers, especially when you're trying to kind of build a culture at the initial stage.
Yes.
I mean, and when you're trying to bring in something new, especially for people who are not used to this kind of an accountability rich statements, the first thing that you see is a resistance that my manager is trying to get too much into breathing down my neck. He's being, I mean, you can be construed as a tough boss. You can be construed as a somebody who's lacking in empathy and so on and so forth. So essentially, it is about those are the initial kind of mental blocks that you face, right? But when you actually are consistent, you are actually able to kind of demonstrate that it is a more viable and a sustainable approach rather than kind of just skimming through the surface. People see through things and they actually turn around and work with you, and that I've seen multiple times, especially with managers who are moving from one leader to the other with a different style of working. So more often than not, you'll see people who say ASAP are kind of lacking in the details, right? They try to get away with the immediate fire. More often than not, if you go deeper, when I say ASAP, I'll get this done ASAP, I myself don't know what I'm talking about. I just want to
Yeah.
get out of that difficult conversation and buy some
Hey.
time for myself.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
So when you not let them go into that, when you hold them, hey, what's your plan? What's your understanding, and so on and so forth. People, the natural instinct is resistance for people, right? I mean that if it's they're not prepared, if they feel threatened, the natural reaction is kind of, hey, you're not empathetic enough. But then when you demonstrate that transparency, that it is I'm asking for a resolution of the issue, I as a leader is here to solve along with you. I'm not just looking for the end part of it, but I'm also along with you with the how part of it. I think it settles down, they settle down into that collaborative mode, and then it becomes a collaborative solution. That's what I've experienced in most of my
Okay.
transactions over
Yeah.
time.
Good one. Yeah. So good one. Yeah. So one of good, like the discussion, I think it relates to what the example you were sharing. So sometime back there was exactly the cable cut happened near our office, like in Chennai, and
Mhm.
our service provider, like proactively reached out to us, which was like pleasantly surprising, right? So he reached out and say, like hey, there is a cable cut, and so this is what happened, and so we are looking at them situation, and we'll keep you posted. At least it's going to take 3-4 hours, because by the time we figure out who is responsible and bring that person to get it done, it's going to be 3-4 hours. So so I'll keep you posted if anything, any other updates meanwhile. Uh,
Mhm.
So like that kind of a proactive communication, right? Takes away the ambiguity and like takes make the customer feel a little bit more even though they are in a tough situation, right? Like nobody wants to lose internet connection in the middle of the day or working day, but if that happens, like if you know that is the situation and it's not going to be there for 3 4 hours, you are mentally prepared, or you make an educated like decision. Okay, I
Decision.
can.
And generally, people are intelligent. I mean, 90% of your customers or clients are intelligent. I mean,
Yeah.
the reason they're there. So they understand. And there will always be that 10% who are going to be unrealistic. And even with them, you have to be a little more patient. But again, getting away from the situation by ASAP is going to add to the problem, basically.
Yeah, yeah, true. So that, yeah, that's a kind of like a good way of handling it. Yeah. Okay, so next like in next move to the next discussion point. So Shilpi and Dayant, like like I want to pick your thoughts on this one. The relentless push for ASAP responses can affect a employee morale and productivity. Service agents may feel pressured to prioritize speed over accuracy, leading to a burnout and a reduced job satisfaction. What are your views on ASAP as a directive for customer service?
Varun, you want to go first?
Okay. Thanks, Shilpi. So, what I would say is that when there is a culture of ASAP, when there is a top-down push or across push of ASAP, when we try to straighten it out, there will always be backlash
Mm.
in terms of why change this culture, which is not at all structured,
Yeah,
right? So what happens, or what would be the effect on that is that everything cannot be ASAP, then your BP and everything will go up, shoot up. And at the end of the day, you will eventually work on all the days, all weekends, and you will stay late. One day, if you look back, then you will obviously think, what am I doing it? And why am I doing it? Right? And then that leads to a burnout. Now, if ASAP is a culture and it will continue as a culture, and if you are part of it, and if you can't change it, then there is no way around. Rather, you take a side step of it. But if there is a change, or if you can fix a mindset by saying, okay, there is an ASAP, I want to change this, then there are two things that is required. One is preemptiveness of that situation which is coming on, and then proactiveness in terms of planning, and then negotiate where the uh, quality always succeeds with the speed, right?
yeah,
One single point, maybe the thing that we normally do is that, hey, we can, if customer asks for ASAP, hey, I need it by tomorrow, then we say something like, hey, we can give you a better product, a quality outcome, but it will take additional 2 days. Will you be okay with that? All right. So you have to change it in a slow way, right? And the preemptiveness from the leader level, which is very important, because there are certain clients that are seasonal, and there will always be seasonal spikes. For example, in US retail organization, Thanksgiving will be a pretty seasonal and high sale days, right? And that time, customer will not be, because that is a major revenue generating for the customer, because his revenue books will be straightened out. Now, as a leader, we have to preempt uh, before 2 months of that November month and say that, okay, fine, my customer will anyway come for multiple requests that might need either the systemic correction or resources correction, and then approach that.
I'll pick up the points from where he left. So yes, I, and in fact, I'm sure Jaideep and you would also agree. There's no turning back now. We do have to work in a speedy manner, because the expectations have evolved with the social presence, with the e-commerce quite available to all the customers in different sectors as well. Customer expectations are a little different. The Gen Zs and our Gen Beta would come up with the different expectations of the responses. So all the companies, all the industries would have to adapt. But does it have to lead to a burnout or a very stressful situation? I don't think so. One, because as a leader, it is my job, our job, to understand or set the expectations of the training, of the processes, of designing the entire flow of the communications that is going to happen with the customers in a way which is going to become a benchmark. There would be certain certain criteria which would require immediate result. There would be certain people who would be handling only those cases. There would be certain people who would be handling which would require a longer period of time, a little detailed situations where there would be more empathy required. So, we always have a different escalation team, because, it has to be handled in an absolutely different way. So as long as we have our training and processes streamlined with the right expectations, I don't think burnout would happen. Yes, there would be seasonal spike and drop on all of these cases, on all of the customer queries or demands from the market, based on which, as a leader, we should, again, I'll pick up the points from Varun, that we have to, as a leader, we have to preemptive those situations in hand, and reshuffle our people and resources in a way that it can be handled in a much better way without leading to a burnout state.
Yeah. Otherwise, how many more days they can last, right? Dealing with the same situation again and again. It's not actually the customer service, not many people realize how difficult it is to be
Yes.
so because they are the one having that most difficult conversation, guess your end customers are not going to call when they are happy or when when everything is working fine, right?
Yeah.
That's what I keep telling my people, that they won't call you when they're happy. They'll rather call their girlfriends.
Yeah. So it's not a good situation. Yeah. Okay. So the next question, Jagdeep and Shilpi, for you. Can you share examples of where ASAP worked well and where it fell short?
Jaydeep, over to you.
Yeah. So I think where it worked well, I think the only place that ASAP will work, of course, when you already have sized the problem, or what's in your hand, what needs to be solved. So ASAP, again, it's not a methodology. It's like a war cry. I would say where ASAP is used as a war cry to kind of energize your team, bring in a sense of urgency, even in a positive manner. That's where it has worked. I'll give you some example. Uh, uh, During the COVID time, back in 2000, when the lockdown happened, I still remember the date. It was, I think, 21st March or something, 21st or 23rd March. So we had a window of just 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours from the government that, hey, you have to shut down everything and move back home. That was, we all lived that time, right? So we knew that it was already a situation, it was already a mandate from the government. So we work US time. So I still remember I was woken up. I was we rushed to the office, starting from the office boy to the business head. Everybody was on the floor, rolled up their sleeve, and were scrambling to get as many as possible to get to the to stand up the business, which we had no clue about remotely. So there, not everybody was tuned, were able to fathom the situation, right? Because it was enormous for anybody. For a seasoned guy like me also, forget about a frontline guy or somebody like a housekeeping guy and all, which is where we worked, this ASAP worked like a war cry that, hey, whatever is assigned to you, everybody was, regardless of your position, everybody had rolled up their sleeves on the floor, packing system, IT was fixing whatever they were supposed to be fixing, logistics was doing it. Their ASAP brought in a sense of energy, brought in a sense of kind of urgency, and of course, energize the people. I mean, because we already have figured out, I mean, we had a clear understanding what we are supposed to be doing. So their ASAP was more like a second, in a more, in a positive side, I mean, in our kind of an industry, people engagement is an extremely important pillar. I mean, like four pillars: people, process, performance, project, and pillar. People. I mean, to me, people is the most important pillar in our people-centric industry. So we do a lot of engagement, a lot of people development activities. I mean, we take it very seriously. Fun, we take very seriously. I mean, in a BPO industry, given the age group that we have, there also sometimes, let's say you have a recently we had this year-end activity and so on and so forth. There were a lot of competitions, there were a lot of events on the floor. So there, if you use ASAP in a positive connotation, it helps recharge your people, and everybody gets energized, get to do things. They do more than what they would have done otherwise. They quickly, I mean, I give them a task: hey, you need to decorate the floor and you need to create that, let's say it's a Santa thing, and you got to do it like ASAP with a very positive connotation. That's where it worked very well for me. So to your point, it worked where we have a really already have the right sizing of the problem, or where we want to use it as a walk ride to kind of bring in some energy into our young population. But that's only where it worked, and rest everywhere else, I'm absolutely not in favor of using, because this is a very lousy statement for building a culture.
Yeah.
That
True.
answers your question.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
So I would say, of course, ASAP, relates to having a speedy responses to the customer, and how or when does it work and when does it not work. One, it definitely works when you're replying back on the social media. So we've had absolutely wonderful comments and reviews from the customers when we were or let's say when I was a part of the ACO, and even when I am a part of Free, when people have or the customers have contacted on social media, and we've been very quick to respond to them and to their query, and we've been able to resolve that quicker. So those are the timelines when, of course, the ASAP or the speedy responses have worked, because that is what their expectation was, and that's how it has to be done.
May I ask that question? That ASAP, I mean, speedy is fine, but ASAP, I guess, is about having a vague timeline. ASAP is not
correct. But I think while Uthman mentioned about the introductory, we were also talking about the speedy responses towards it. So not just ASAP, because that is something we all three of us or four of us have established, that ASAP does not function well anyways now. Right? It's a no-go, as you mentioned earlier. So I'm basically giving example of when the speedy responses actually work, when it doesn't work. There are times when it is not going to work, and I'll give you the examples. When I was a part of the BMW group, and I was a part of the BMW financial services. We provide loans to customers who want to buy BMW cars. And in those cases, there is also negotiation on the interest rates as well. Now that cannot be done on an ASAP level, because as Varun was discussing, all those internal discussions, internal approvals does take time. Similarly, on the debt settlement as well, when you are basically reaching out to the creditors and negotiating on the final settlement offers for the customers, these are the timelines when the ASAP are not going to work at all. So these are the fields where ASAP has not worked. Customer has come up with those expectations, but unfortunately it has not worked, and we have tried to set up the expectations right by being very transparent, or making them understand what is going to be the process. What are we going to do in the background for them to get the best rates, or whether it's interest rate or the settlement rates. The same goes for the escalations as well, where the speedy responses, of course, doesn't work, while in the rest of the cases, I think a speedy response is now expected. So it is very important to have those structured out very clearly on the different kind of queries or complaints or concerns that will be raised to you as an organization.
Great. So thanks, Shilpi, for that point. And so let's move on to the next one. That's the final discussion point for today. And so Varun, are you back?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, you are. Hi, Varun. We missed you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last discussion point goes like this. Hyper personalized timelines consider the customer's context, preferences, and the complexity of their issue, shifting from ASAP to as appropriate and personalized. Do you think there is a case for moving forward hyper personalized service timelines? Can you give some use cases? It's open for all three of you. So.
Okay, so hyper personalized stuff. All right. So in our B2B side of things, maybe Jaydeep also will agree with me on that. Is that bank industry wise, banking financial services prioritization. The customers of banks and financial services will supersede the rest of the lot because of the downtime or priority or the security side of things, where the support of a level 3 will be something like it's like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Immediate thing, because the transactions will go for a toss, and obviously we need to intervene as soon as possible. Now, with the evolution of AI and everything, so we should aim for a solid data in terms of what would be the level 1, level 2, level 3 priority in terms of the severity of it. Now, as soon as possible, if you apply to everything and anything, then it is not ASAP at all. It is issues. But now, rather understand the data with the AI, its evolution, and then categorize it and preempt for the high priority stuff and be ready for that, because your response time should be less than 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Then you should be in a position to fix it and win the customer. So that I would say, combining the past scenarios, learn it, document it, and create a kind of a workflow and a best practice, and then adapt AI so that for certain challenges it can be automated, and it can be it is so simple that I mean, your AI agent can fix it for you. Rather, the resources wise can focus on the medium and long high priority items, right? So this is on the banking side of scenarios. Now, as a B2B guy, I need to group it. Okay, B2B side, banking is priority for me, and then retail during festive season is a priority to me, and then healthcare claims, month-end claims, and month beginning claims would be priority for me. Payouts should be priority for me. And then energy companies, my billing management at the middle of the month or end of the month should be priority to me. So when I manage those kind of portals, I should preempt certain scenarios and then act on it. So yes, clustering is good, prioritization is good, but it should be based on their scenarios and use cases, is my final opinion on that.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Totally agree on that. Similar to exactly what Varun said. I mean, I have this client from the travel industry. Now during they have certain packages for the year-end festivities, like the Thanksgiving and this Christmas to year-end. And there are a lot of discounts, a lot of packages and all that. So by default, you have to prioritize or have to have the severity level, what Varun was saying, has to be much higher, and we have to be prepared for that. We knowing that these is a part of the calendar versus the regular queries which we get for the same travel portal. Likewise, I mean, for a telecom client, I mean, I have a big telecom, one of the largest one in US. If they're launching a certain package, especially with the launch of iPhone, they come up with certain packages and all. And we know that those need to be addressed with a different level of prioritization versus the regular call flow. So those are areas, and again, coming back to the people side of it, because that's always been the most important aspect of me. This hyper personalization kind of works when you're again creating a kind of a performance plan. Let's say for people, I'm moving totally away from a customer to my internal customer, which is people. Everybody has a different learning curve. Everybody has a different way of kind of adapting to situations. Now, you as a leader is kind of you're tasked to get the best out of people. Now, no two individuals are same. Excuse me. So there I have to use a personalization in terms of demanding a task, demanding a project out of those people, knowing their learning curve, knowing their strengths and opportunity areas, and thereby bringing the best out of both of them. I mean, I cannot use a standard approach for both of them. So yes, hyper personalization in high severity cases, definitely I mean, across industries that we spoke about. For me, I had telecom, the travel portal that I spoke about. And for people also, it is equally applicable, I mean, the personalized approach.
Okay. Yeah.
Picking up on the same point, this is something that I've also mentioned on my LinkedIn, and you mentioned in during my introduction as well. Product, processes, services, everything can be copied. It is how you make a customer feel is going to last long, and it is going to define whether the customer is going to stay with you or not. Now, that feeling would, of course, come with a lot of personalization. So hyper personalization is going to be the way. Thanks to the AI, I feel we should be able to personalize a lot of things, or let's say standardize a lot of things, and still have a personalization in future. But I do believe that's how it's going to be, especially in the industry that I am in, where it's a debt settlement. Of course, customer is in a distressed state. You and every customer would have a different debt. It has to be handled at a very personalized level. It's the same for, I believe, I think Indayanand would be able to help me, or let's say vouch with me, that in terms of sales as well and marketing as well, when you do a personalized nudges, or when you have a personalized quotation for a particular client, sales also works much better, because it is for that particular client based on what they were expecting out of getting a benefit from the partner in front. So yes, hyper personalization is the way. I think what challenges now we are going to face, and I'm sure Jaydeep must be facing that already, it is the operational cost on those cases, because when you're talking about hyper personalization, of course, you need people who are problem solvers at an agent level. You need people who have a really high score on the EQ as well, where the moment they're picking up the call, or the moment they're answering an email, they are able to understand the underlying emotions and respond to them accordingly, rather than doing a checklist conversation with the customer. So yes, the cost would become a factor, and I at least hope that with the presence of the AI and a lot of voice bot automations as well, which is now coming in, hopefully this should be balanced out in near future. I still don't think the voice bot is as ready as we might expect it at certain point of time. But in future, I'm hoping that it should be, let's say, enable at least our agents, or empower enough for them to have a very personalized responses based on whatever analysis they have been able to do through IVR, through email readings, through chat readings, etc.
Yeah, good points actually. So yeah, it's like perfect balance, right? What you want to do and how you want to get it done, and so it makes sense. Okay. So a lot of good discussion points today. I hope some of these points resonate very well with our audience, and so they find it very useful for them. That's the whole idea. Audience, if you have any questions, this is the time. I know we are running a few minutes late, but apologize for that. But yeah, feel free to come out with your questions. So while I'm going to thank our panelists for taking their time to come to us today. Get your questions ready. So meanwhile, I would like to thank all three of you, taking time from your busy schedule and be with us today and help us clarify these points. So thank you so much for Jaideep. Thank you so much, Varun, and yeah, she'll be to be with us. I know it's not easy to find 1.5 hour from the busy schedule. We greatly appreciate, and in case any other events in the future, please feel free to join us. We would be more than happy to have you and have one more round of discussion.
It was a
pleasure. Yeah, it was a pleasure speaking to all of you guys. I think someone did raise hand.
Yeah.
But I'm not able to see it. Hopefully, your team should be.
So any questions?
Hi, good evening. This is Kasturi this side. I do have one question for all of you. Thank you for this wonderful session, first of all. My question is, I genuinely actually believe that ASAP is not a timeline. But as we discussed, there are sometimes we are supposed to get in touch with our vendors. Like if there is a fiber cut, you said, 90% of our customers are intelligent and they'll understand. But for the 10%, I need to chase our vendor. So in that case, how can I communicate the urgency without using ASAP? Any suggestions will be very helpful.
I think, shall I take that question?
Yes,
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I know. I mean, that's why customer service is one of the most difficult industries. I mean, difficult jobs. I mean, for those 10%, again, I would still insist. See, I mean, if you use ASAP, you yourself do not know the turnaround time, to be very honest, right? I mean,
Yeah.
what you're doing practically is you're basically trying to get away from that immediate heat. Now, it will take a little bit of a resilience, a little bit of a courage, and a deep breath to understand and face it, that those 10% of your customer are going to be unrealistic, will be, to the extent of being hard on their conversation, and I mean, extreme cases abusive also. But if you hold on to the ground, you keep in mind the simple thing: focus on things which you can control, and try to ignore or learn to ignore things which you cannot control. Practical in this situation, I would stick to my point. I would stick to the transparency and the honest assessment of the thing, and be ready, develop a certain level of, and do not take anything personally. That's another armor that we develop in a customer service industry, right? I mean, but if you resort to ASAP, that's not going to solve anything for you. Maybe I mean, you will be able to get away from that conversation, that phone call, or that chat or whatever, but it will come back and hound you even sharper. So my 2 cents to it is, focus on things that you can control, stick to the transparent, honest approach, and third, do not take anything personally, because ultimately, I mean, we can only do that much.
Necessary to add to this question, it was a lovely question, by the way, but to add to what Jaideep has just mentioned, transparency, of course, help. But sometimes, when you're out of the options, sometimes you should ask the vendor or the customer themselves. So let's say, the same fiber issue has happened. You've told them that these are the steps that we're going to take to resolve it. These are the timelines, and the customer is still upset and still frustrated. You should ask them, so do you have any suggestions in which we can help you out? Especially when you're speaking to a vendor, when you're speaking to a partner, let them give them options. There can be two things. Either they'll give you an option and you'll be able to learn out of it. Second, if they're not able to give you the option, they'll be able to understand what you guys are going through and will be able to tone down their own expectations with you. So that also helps.
Thank you, Shilpa.
Yeah. Most of
We
the
have
time,
another. Sorry, go ahead,
yeah.
Uthman.
No, most of the time what happens is issues and the hard times are the time where you have to be more resilient and be persistent and honest. So that's
Correct.
best way to get closer with your customer. So they're going to appreciate you better, right? Because at least they know that they can rely on us. So that's
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So one more question.
Yeah. So I think it's the same question. I think they have answered just now. Uthman, I have one more question. So anybody can answer here. So what effect do you think ASAP has on customer trust, especially in a situation where the issue is affecting in a very large group? Could it lead to a more frustration if not fulfilled promptly, or does it still be a useful tool for building confidence?
Mohammed, sorry, how
Please
are you
go
called?
ahead.
Is it Mohammed or Hussein?
Yeah, you can call me, please.
Okay. Mohammed, there are several studies, whether it's PwC's customer insights or Zendesk customer trends. There are several studies which states that if the answer or the responses have not been quick enough as per the customer's expectation, there is a drop in the customer loyalty. There's a drop in retention, and it works vice versa as well. In fact, 1% of an increase in the FCR, which is again a speedy, in a way of responding to the customer in a speedy manner, has shown improvement on retention and sale by 1%. So that's how it impacts on an overall organizational growth and revenue perspective.
Okay. Sure. Thanks, ma'am.
Okay. I think they have one more question. That's it's the last question because we are running out of time. So yeah, Pawan.
Varun, you want to take this up? There's a question that says, is industry treating ASAP as a tat, or is it understands as a point to buy more time?
Oh, okay. As far as my experience goes on the ASAP with the customer, when we say that, see, there are two scenarios in which you can answer when customer says, one is, hey, I will fix it ASAP, right? Or I will say that, hey, I understand the situation. This thing will take this much X amount of time. Hope within that time I will deliver it in an absolute quality way, right? Um, when we say this to 90% of the customers, they will always be okay with the second option, rather than we doing it as an ASAP and rush towards everything or burn everybody down in your organizational chain and fix this, right? Rather, I would always say that transparency plays a major role when we honestly communicate that we understand this issue. We know that you want it urgently, but if you give us 1 or 2 days time or 5 hours, 6 hours time, or maybe 1 day time, we will solve it. We will give it this kind of input or output, right? For that, maybe I need this kind of inputs from your end to fix this. So that is the way. Even my customers say that, okay, fine. This is what I want. Okay, this is the timeline you are saying. I'm okay with that. Give it to me. And I always take a side step on the ASAP time. See, I will always have the belief of ASAP is for medical practice, right? For doctors, right? When they are treating with the life critical stuff, when there is an ASAP, they need to do for that health fix, right? But other than that, I would always categorically say that you cannot do it with a minute or 5 minute or 10 minute, right? When you don't know the issue, right? When you know the issue that you can fix it in a minute, then it's okay because you learned it. But when you don't know the issue, when you say ASAP, then first of all, it's not possible. Second of all, you will further burn your bridges with the customer. Rather, you understand the problem and then communicate in a meaningful way and then solve it is the way to go. So that is why I will put it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I think that's all the questions. So that comes to the end of our session today. So I would like to thank one more time Jagdeep, Varun, and Shilpi for taking your time. We appreciate it, and looking forward to be in touch with you, talking to you sometime in future, in different topic or like a different format. Thank you so much, and wish you all happy New Year, and see you all soon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Taman, and thank you all. Jaydeep and Shilpi, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.